The streets of Beverly Hills gleamed under the late afternoon sun, bustling with shoppers and tourists eager to catch a glimpse of luxury. Designer boutiques lined the sidewalks, their window displays sparkling with the latest fashion trends. Among the crowd, a familiar figure walked unnoticed, blending in with the flow of people. Will Smith, dressed casually in jeans, a hoodie, and a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes, strolled down Rodeo Drive. For a man used to the spotlight, he enjoyed moments like these, when he could walk freely without the weight of cameras and fans trailing him. Today, he wasn't a superstar or a Hollywood icon. He was just a man looking to buy a gift for his wife, Jada. As he passed the sleek glass doors of an exclusive jewelry boutique, a particular necklace caught his eye. It was simple yet elegant, a gold chain with a delicate pendant that seemed perfect for Jada. Smiling to himself, Will decided to step inside. The store exuded luxury from every corner. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and the faint scent of expensive cologne lingered in the air. Behind the counter stood a sharply dressed sales associate, a middle-aged man with perfectly styled hair and a practiced smile. At first, the man didn't notice Will's entrance. He was busy chatting with a well-dressed couple, showing them a display of diamond bracelets. Will waited patiently, his hands in his pockets, taking in the opulence of the store. After a few moments, the couple left, their laughter fading as the door chimed softly behind them. The sales associate finally turned his attention to Will, his smile faltering as his eyes scanned the casual outfit and baseball cap. "Can I help you?" the man asked, his tone polite but guarded. Will approached the counter, pointing toward the necklace in the display case. "Yeah, I'd like to see that gold pendant, please." The sales associate hesitated for a fraction of a second before responding. "That piece is quite expensive," he said carefully, his eyes narrowing slightly. Will raised an eyebrow. "That's fine. I'd still like to see it." The man pursed his lips, as if weighing whether it was worth his time. Reluctantly, he pulled the necklace from the case and placed it on the counter. "This is a custom piece," he explained, his tone taking on a condescending edge. "Designed by a renowned jeweler in Italy. It's one of our most exclusive items." Will leaned in to examine the necklace, but he couldn't ignore the subtle tension in the air. The way the man spoke, the hesitation in his movements, it all carried an unspoken message. "Looks beautiful," Will said, keeping his tone light. "How much is it?" The sales associate's expression tightened. $25,000, he replied, folding his arms across his chest as if to emphasize the point. Will nodded, unfazed by the price. "All right, I'll take it." The man blinked, momentarily thrown off by Will's calm response. He clearly hadn't expected someone dressed so casually to make such a purchase without a second thought. "Are you sure?" the man pressed, his skepticism apparent. "That's quite a significant amount." Will met the man's gaze, his expression steady. "I'm sure." The sales associate's smile returned, but it was strained. He began to prepare the necklace for purchase, his movements still cautious. As Will waited, a woman entered the store, a stylish older lady in a designer coat, her perfume announcing her presence before she even spoke. The sales associate's demeanor changed instantly. His smile widened, his posture straightened, and he greeted her with enthusiastic warmth. "Mrs. Davenport. What a pleasure to see you," he gushed, abandoning Will mid-transaction to attend to the new arrival. Will watched the interaction with a mix of amusement and frustration. The difference in treatment was undeniable. Mrs. Davenport received the kind of service that Will, despite his fame and fortune, was being denied simply because he didn't fit the expected image. Mrs. Davenport glanced at Will briefly, her eyes widening in recognition. "Oh my goodness," she said, her voice rising with excitement. "You're Will Smith." The sales associate froze, his smile faltering again as he processed the woman's words. Will smiled politely, nodding. "Yes, ma'am. Nice to meet you." Mrs. Davenport turned to the sales associate, her expression incredulous. "Do you know who this is?" "He's one of the biggest stars in Hollywood." The man's face turned pale. I didn't realize." Will chuckled softly. "It's all right. You didn't know." But his calm demeanor didn't mask the message behind his words. He had noticed the difference in how he was treated, and so had everyone else in the store. The tension was palpable, hanging in the air like an invisible weight. The sales associate fumbled with the necklace, quickly wrapping it up and placing it in a velvet box. "Here you go, Mr. Smith," he said, his voice shaky. "I apologize for any misunderstanding." Will took the box, his smile kind but firm. "Thank you." As he turned to leave, he paused at the door, glancing back at the sales associate. "You know," he said, his tone thoughtful, "respect shouldn't come from recognition. It should be there from the start." With that, Will Smith stepped out into the bright afternoon sun, leaving behind a stunned sales associate and a story that would soon make headlines. As Will stepped back out onto Rodeo Drive, the golden sun reflected off the shop windows, but the encounter in the boutique lingered heavily in his mind. The quiet sting of prejudice, even wrapped in politeness and luxury, was something he had experienced too many times before. It didn't matter that he was one of the most recognizable actors in the world. Today, he had been judged by appearances. He tucked the small velvet box into his pocket and began walking toward his car, weaving through the bustling crowd. He wasn't angry, but there was a quiet resolve growing inside him. Will had built his career on being relatable, a voice of hope and positivity. But moments like these reminded him that change still had a long way to go. As he walked, he heard someone call out behind him. "Mr. Smith." "Wait." He turned to see the woman from the store, Mrs. Davenport, hurrying after him. Her elegant coat billowed slightly in the breeze, and her designer heels clicked against the pavement. Will stopped, smiling warmly. "Yes, ma'am." Mrs. Davenport caught her breath before speaking. "I just wanted to apologize for what happened back there. That was unacceptable. You shouldn't have been treated that way." Will's expression softened. "Thank you. But you don't need to apologize for someone else's behavior." She shook her head. "No, I do. Because I've seen it happen before, and I didn't speak up. I should have. It's time we all start saying something when we see it." Will nodded slowly. Her words resonated with him. It wasn't just about his experience, it was about the countless moments of discrimination that went unnoticed or unchallenged. "Thank you for saying that," he said gently. "It means a lot." Mrs. Davenport glanced around, lowering her voice. "May I ask, are you going to do anything about it? People listen to you. You could make a difference." Will's smile faded slightly as he considered her words. He had always used his platform to inspire, to uplift. But maybe it was time to take a more direct approach. "I think you're right," he said after a pause. "It's time we talk about these moments. Not just the big, obvious ones, but the everyday ones. Because those are the ones that hurt the most." Mrs. Davenport smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion. "If anyone can do it, it's you." As she turned to leave, Will stood still for a moment, watching her walk away. The city buzzed around him, cars honking, tourists snapping photos, but he felt a shift in the air. A call to action, a reminder that stories like his needed to be told. He pulled out his phone and opened the camera app. The screen reflected his thoughtful expression. Will hesitated for a moment, then hit record. "Hey, everyone," he began, his voice calm but purposeful. "I want to share something that just happened to me. It's not the first time, and unfortunately, it probably won't be the last. But it's important we talk about it." He recounted his experience in the store, not naming the boutique but clearly painting the picture of what had happened. He spoke about the quiet moments of discrimination, the subtle ways people are judged by their appearances. "This isn't about me," he said. "It's about the fact that it happens to so many people who don't have a platform to speak out. People who walk into stores, go to restaurants, or apply for jobs and are treated differently because of how they look." Will paused, his gaze steady. "I've learned that the way to make change is to call it out. To say, this isn't okay. Not with anger or hate, but with grace and clarity. And that's what I'm doing now." He ended the video with a message of hope and a challenge to his followers. Let's do better. Let's be better. And let's make sure everyone is treated with the respect they deserve. Satisfied, he uploaded the video with a caption, "Respect should be given to everyone, from the start. Let's change that narrative." Within minutes, his phone buzzed with notifications. The video quickly gained traction, shared across social media platforms with comments flooding in from people around the world. Back inside the boutique, the sales associate sat at his desk, staring at his phone with wide eyes. The video had reached him, and his face grew pale as he realized the impact of his actions. Customers who had once frequented the store were commenting on the post, expressing disappointment and frustration. "This is unacceptable behavior. Discrimination has no place in our society." Will Smith handled this with class, but it shouldn't have happened in the first place. The man's hands trembled as he scrolled through the comments. He felt a sinking feeling in his chest, a mix of shame and regret. His phone buzzed with a call from the store manager. "We need to talk," the manager said, his voice tense. "Right now." The sales associate swallowed hard. He knew what was coming. The following morning, Will Smith sat at his kitchen table, sipping coffee and scrolling through his phone. The video he had posted less than 24 hours ago had taken on a life of its own. News outlets had picked up the story, social media was buzzing with discussions about everyday discrimination, and celebrities were sharing the post with messages of support. "Will, you've done it again," Jada said as she walked into the kitchen, glancing at his phone screen. "You've got people talking?" Will smiled softly. "Yeah, but it's not about me. It's about something much bigger." Jada sat down across from him. "Still, you took a stand. You called out something that happens to so many people, and you did it in a way that makes people listen." Will nodded. "It's just, how many more people go through this every day without anyone ever noticing? Without anyone ever standing up for them?" Jada reached across the table, placing her hand on his. "That's why you did the right thing. Now they know they're not alone." Just then, Will's phone buzzed with an incoming call. It was a number he didn't recognize. Normally, he would ignore it, but something made him pick up. "Hello, Mr. Smith," a familiar voice said on the other end. "This is Thomas, the sales associate from the boutique." Will's expression hardened slightly, but he kept his tone even. "What can I do for you?" There was a pause on the other end of the line, and when Thomas spoke again, his voice was shaky. I wanted to apologize. I realize now that what I did was wrong. I made assumptions based on your appearance, and there's no excuse for that." Will leaned back in his chair, listening intently. "I've been reading the comments," Thomas continued, his voice breaking slightly. "People have been sharing their own stories. I had no idea how common this kind of behavior is, and it makes me sick to think that I've been part of the problem." Will took a deep breath. "I appreciate you saying that, Thomas. But the real question is, what are you going to do about it?" Thomas hesitated before replying. "I've already spoken to the store manager. We're implementing new policies, and I've enrolled in diversity and sensitivity training. I don't want to be that person anymore." Will nodded, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "That's a good start. I've also decided to donate a portion of my salary to organizations that support racial equality," Thomas added, his voice growing stronger. "I want to do my part to make things right." Will's smile widened. "Now that's what I like to hear. It's not just about saying sorry, it's about taking action." They spoke for a few more minutes before ending the call. As Will set his phone down, Jada raised an eyebrow. "That sounded promising." Will chuckled. "Yeah. It's a step in the right direction." Later that day, Will decided to visit the boutique once more. This time, he wasn't dressed in casual clothes. He wore a sharp suit and sunglasses, looking every bit the Hollywood star that people expected. As he walked through the door, the atmosphere in the store shifted immediately. Thomas, the sales associate, spotted him and hurried over, a nervous but determined expression on his face. "Mr. Smith," he said, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming back. And thank you for giving me the chance to make things right." Will shook his hand firmly. "It's not about me, Thomas. It's about making sure this doesn't happen to anyone else." The store manager approached, offering a warm smile. "We've learned a lot in the past 24 hours. Your video opened our eyes to the changes we need to make." Will nodded, his gaze sweeping the store. "Good. But remember, this isn't just a one-time fix. It's an ongoing commitment?" Thomas and the manager both nodded solemnly. Before leaving, Will turned to the other customers in the store, who were watching the interaction with curious eyes. "Respect should be a given," he said, his voice carrying across the room. "Not something you have to earn based on how you look or what you wear." As he stepped back onto Rodeo Drive, the warm sun on his face, Will felt a sense of peace. He had taken a difficult moment and turned it into a lesson, a message that would ripple far beyond the walls of the boutique. That evening, as he sat with Jada and their kids, they watched the news together. The story of Will's encounter at the boutique had become a national conversation, with people sharing their own experiences and calling for change. "You started something," Jada said softly. Will smiled. "We all did. Now it's up to everyone to keep it going." The screen cut to footage of Thomas standing outside the boutique, addressing the press. "We're not perfect," Thomas said. "But we're committed to doing better. And thanks to Mr. Smith, I've learned that it's never too late to change." As the family sat together, watching the world respond to a story of discrimination and redemption, Will knew that they had made a difference. But the work wasn't over. It never would be.